Hello, happy Monday. It's a very snowy Monday here in Indianapolis. Welcome to those of you as you pop on and join us. I am Kristi with ReHash Decor Design here in Indianapolis, and I'm so excited to kick off the week with a live. I know for so many of us it's cold, it's snowy, and so we're kind of just hunkering down in our houses. And so what better way to hunker down in our houses than to watch a live and get some creative ideas and just work on projects that maybe have been sitting around forever, right? So as you pop on, say hello and tell me that you're warm too, right? So if you've not joined me live, or if you've not been over on our page at ReHash Decor and followed us live, you'll see that I work in my basement and it's a hot, creative mess. So just don't pay attention to all the mess around me. Just kind of pay attention to what we're doing here. So hello everyone. So today, what I get to spend the next few minutes chatting with you on are the MetalSmith products. And I think there's so many people who are scared about using the MetalSmith products because they're just not sure how to use them. There's maybe some mystery to them. Or if you're like me, you are kind of OCD and you like to have a lot of control over where the paint lands and how it looks. And with MetalSmith products, you just have to give up that control. So yeah, Hot Creative Mess is your middle name. Well, then we must be sisters from another mister, because that clearly back there says that is not just my middle name, but it might be my first name too. So I promise you that MetalSmith, once you all try it and maybe you understand how to use it a little bit better and you try it, it becomes super addictive. And then you'll find that like almost all your pieces have some type of MetalSmith on it, or you want to use it on something. You'll see that like all your pieces need MetalSmith. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna work on a couple different pieces. So I thought the best way to show you kind of how it works is to be able to show you how to do it in multiple stages, because there's a couple different stages to using MetalSmith. So the first thing we're gonna do is use it on this box that I have kind of here in front of me that you can see a part of right now, but I'll bend you down so you can see in a minute. So this is kind of stage one of where we start with MetalSmith, and then that green table back behind me is going to be stage two. So we're going to work on that here in a minute. So I probably should have saved green for next month and all of our Look for Hans, right? But we're going to work on that today. Maybe we're just going to be green with envy for all of those of you who might be joining us from someplace warm, because I wish I was near a window and you could see, because it's like snowing like crazy and there's no way I'm leaving my house today. And I live in Indiana, and so we don't just sit inside when it snows. Like, we're not afraid to get out of Indiana. In Indiana, we're not afraid to get out in snow. Okay, so with MetalSmith, the MetalSmith products have little bits of metal within the paint. So this isn't a paint that we're mixing colors together to make a rusty or metallic type finish. It is a product that we're, are you serious? You're from Indiana too? That's awesome. Well, I'm right smack dab in the middle of the state. So, and I've been here nearly my whole life. So we are going to take this product and we're going to make it turn colors by activating it with some liquid, and we'll show you that in step two. But what you need to do first is we're gonna take a spoon and we're gonna stir it all up really nice and good, because all of that, like all those little particles, can kind of sit down at the bottom of our MetalSmith products, and we want to make sure that they're good and like flowing through here before we start working with it. because we don't want all those little metal pieces sitting at the bottom, and then all we're using is the paint pieces, and then when we go and spray our activator spray on, it doesn't turn. And I think sometimes that's what happens to folks, is that they don't stir it enough, that they still have pieces sitting on the bottom, and then they don't get the look that they want because they don't have the actual metal in their paint. So anyway, so we want to make sure that we, like, you can shake it up if you want to, but I don't like to just shake up these products. I like to actually take and use a spoon and stir it up. So what color we're going to use now, this is the color, my light's a little bright, but this is called Old Santa Fe. So Old Santa Fe is what we're going to use. I saw you said you like, Kayla, that you liked the Tarnished Jade, and yep, that's what's behind me. That's what we're going to use next. So stir it up really, 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 really good. Like get that, like get those metal pieces floating really, really well. And then I always pour this out of here and into a bowl, because sometimes I work with multiple of the metallics together. Like I like to blend them together to get a fun finish, not just the one color. And so I don't want to like cross-contaminate the colors together. So I just have gotten in a habit of taking this and pouring this out into its own little bowl, so that it's easier to work with. And the little jars are, you know, sometimes hard to get your paintbrush in anyway, and so it's just easier to put it in a bowl. So I've given it a good stir. I've just got a little cheapy bowl here. You can use whatever works for you. I have to put this on the ground, you guys. You can't see me pour it. I think you know how to pour into a bowl. But I'm blonde and I'm a Pollock, and so sometimes, like, I'm Creative Mess Express to the max, and so it's just easier for me to do this like on the floor and not try to show you and get all kinds of like super creative, because then I just start making a big mess. Okay, so I'm gonna put the lid back on that. I've got some in my bowl. I've got a chippy brush. I always use a chippy brush when I'm doing these, when I'm using the MetalSmith products, because of the metal in them. I don't want that to like get embedded in any of my really good brushes. I don't want to like mess up any of my good brushes. So I just use a chippy brush, because I know I can use these. They're cheap. I can throw them away when I'm done. I don't have to worry about messing them up at all. So we're gonna work on this box. I'm gonna tip you down here. We're gonna go for a little bit of a ride. You don't get to see me, but you don't care. You don't want to see me anyway. It's Monday and I'm a hot mess. Okay, so this box that we have here, just a big old wooden box with some handles on it. We're gonna decoupage in the middle. I'm gonna put some decoupage paper here in the middle. So I'm not gonna put the MetalSmith here in the middle of it, because this is gonna have some paper in the middle of it eventually. So what we're gonna work on is kind of the outside pieces of it. So we'll do the outside first. So here, let's do a long side. Okay, so what we're gonna do then is this first, I like to stipple my first go round, and you could do this in your second go round too. You need to stipple at least one of your, and I'm getting this on some of the metal pieces of this. I'm okay with that, because I don't want this to look like it was, you know, super perfect, because that's not the point. Like, I want this to look rusty and crusty, and if I like don't go over some of these little metal pieces, then it's gonna look like I put this on here purposely. But I stipple the first round of paint to give it a little bit of texture, so that it's not so even, and then that gives just gives it a kind of a fun look. It's not so perfect in what it looks like. I do warn you that these like little brushes are kind of shedding. I try to get some of the shed out before I go, but I'm not always successful in that. So if you want to just paint on, you know, like regular paint on that first coat, that's totally fine. Just make sure that then that second coat you kind of stipple it, because if you stipple it, then you get some of that texture. And if you think about like rust and what it looks like. It's not like smooth, right? Rust is kind of bumpy, and it's sat out and it's aged and it's textured. And so this is going to give you a little bit of that extra texture to kind of stipple it on. So that's what I do. I stipple this around. And so it's as simple as this in this first round. We are not going to put the activator spray on this first round though. All we're going to do is put the paint. And because I'm going to put this, I want this to go all the way around, I'm going to put this all the way around. I want this color kind of all the way around it. And I know that parts of it are going to kind of get hit with the activator spray, and parts of it are not. So here's the thing, guys. Put this paint where you want it to look rusty and crusty. If you literally want it to go all over your piece, then put it all over your piece. If you only want it to go like in this corner, say you only wanted the rust and crust and everything in this corner, then just put that paint in this little corner, and that's all you would put it. And then that's all you're gonna spray it, is just in that corner. And then after it does its thing, you can come back and blend the two paints together. Whatever color paint you had as your base, you can come back and blend them. But I rarely use the MetalSmith as my base paint. I usually have some other type of base color down that goes with whatever it is that I'm gonna paint. And really, this paint goes a little bit, goes a long way. So whatever you put in your bowl, under guess what you're gonna need, and then you can always add more. But I don't like to put back into my container what I'm not using, because again, you're just gonna cross-contaminate, right? Hello from British Columbia. Hello everyone who's jumping on. For those jumping on, we're using Old Santa Fe, and we're just using, this is just our first coat. So we put a base coat. I have a base coat of onyx down, it's just the true black. And all we're doing is kind of getting that initial coat of the MetalSmith down. We're not gonna be activating it this round. We're not gonna be doing any kind of activator spray yet. You need to put yet another coat down before you activate it. So this is what it looks like as round one. So the table that you saw before I bent you down, you could see it had green on it. And so the Tarnished Jade color is what we put on the table behind us. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that when I go and I spray this, I might not get like every single inch of this with the spray. And so some of it is going to stay this kind of bronzy color, and some of it is going to turn into the patina color. And then you can still you'll probably still be able to see some of the black. So once I get all the patina on, then I can come back through, and if I want to add some black back into this where it didn't, where I just want to add some additional color, I can do that. But for now, we're just doing this whole box. Easy peasy, right? Doesn't get much more easy than this. I love this black. You can never have enough onyx on hand. Like, you need gallon sizes of onyx on hand. And then I'm just gonna do really quick, I'm just gonna do some in the inside here. Hope I don't push it off of this little box that I set it on. I'm not doing full coverage inside in this box because I'm going to be doing, like I said, I'm doing some decoupage paper. And the decoupage paper that I'll be using has some patina already on the paper itself. It looks like it's got patina, so it'll mix in with this really well. But I just need it to kind of blend in. I don't want it to be like solid black. I need it to blend in with that paper. And as I sit and talk about decoupage paper, Thursday, you'll have to come back. Our next live will be Thursday, and that will be the topic of conversation, is using our luster products to do the decoupage and how can you use those. So make sure you come back and join us on Thursday afternoon. And if you can't join us, catch the replay to learn all about how to use our luster products doing that. All right, got two more little sides. And then we get to go do the fun stuff. So this is the boring round, like you get to paint it and then you got to walk away from it and you're like, well, that was kind of fun, I suppose, but it's not really fun. So this is Old Santa Fe, if you are just jumping on, that we're using. There are so many different colors out there. That's one thing I love about the Miss Lillian's MetalSmith product line, is that you've got more than just iron and bronze and copper. You've got all kinds of different colors that you can pick from. And so if you can't find a MetalSmith color out there to go with your project, then you probably just don't need to be working with MetalSmith to begin with. But I mean, there's pinks and blues and all kinds of stuff. And then there's 3 different activator sprays, and we'll talk about those here in a minute, that you can pick from as well to go with all the different ones. Okay, so that's all we're gonna do there. Just gonna grab a baggie, and we're going to let this, I'm gonna put this brush in a baggie so it doesn't get all nasty and we can use it again, but we're gonna let that sit, okay? So that is the first coat. That's all we're gonna do with that. We're gonna let that dry really good. Then we'll come back and we'll do a second coat on that, and then we can spray our activator on it. Okay, we're gonna go for a ride. So I'm sure you're excited about going for a ride here. Okay. I think people's internets, I'm hoping mine isn't being wonky too. I think everybody's internet might be a little wonky today because of all this storm and crud, like all the weather. Okay, so here we have our green table. This is painted in the Tarnished Jade. So this is Tarnished Jade, okay? So let's get it kind of stirred up first. And I know I have a spoon. Here we go, here's our spoon. So I've got a spoon here. Let's stir this sucker up, get it good and stirred up so that, more like sledding in Washington, that I'm gonna guess sledding means maybe ice, lots of ice out there. We can sled here too, just in snow. We're not getting as much ice. Although when the cars drive over it 100 times and nobody's like plowed it, then it becomes ice. But they're saying we're gonna get like, I think 11 to 13 inches or something, which for us is unusual anymore. like an inch an hour or something this evening, so kind of unusual for us to get that much. All right, I'm just pouring some in a bowl. And I'm gonna put this away. Okay, now this table, we're gonna take in stages now. Let's see here, 20, oh my goodness, 20 inches. See, I'm just ready for spring. You know what, guys? Like, if all the snow had come, like, in November, maybe I would have been a little more accepting of it, but I think I'm just ready for spring now. Dang little critter that didn't see saw his shadow. Yeah, you definitely have to stir these well, because if you don't, it sits at the bottom. And just shaking it, I don't think is enough, because those little pieces of metal are so thin and so lightweight that even shaking it, it doesn't, like, unless you just keep shaking it for a long time, it really just, it doesn't get it like integrated into it enough. So you really need to stir it really good to make sure you have enough metal in what you're, you've got to paint. And you're not going to see those little metal bits either. Like, it's not like you can say, oh yeah, I got plenty in that. You're just not going to see them, the little bits in there. Okay, so we have that. The second thing we're going to need, because this is the first coat's been on here, so I have a base coat of chocolate on this table, and then I did the Tarnished Jade. And then now that we're putting our second coat on, while the paint is wet in our second coat, we're gonna want to spray the activator spray on. So you don't want to wait until the paint is dry with the second coat. You want to, on this second coat, while it's wet, you want to spray your activator spray. So your activator spray is going to come in a bottle like this. You can order refills, but this is the bottle, and you're going to get a little pump with this. Now here's my public service announcement. 2 public service announcements for this. 1, this pump, once you take this lid off and you put the pump in here, don't leave it in here and think, okay, I put it all together and now I can just leave it here. Because this is meant to rust this, right? And so if you leave this pump in here, there's like little metal pieces in this tube, and they'll rust out if you leave it in there, and then it's not gonna work. And so you're gonna come back to use it again, and your pump isn't gonna work, and you're gonna be like, what the heck? And you're gonna be super frustrated. So after you use this, you wanna make sure that you take it out, take this apart. I even pull this little piece out, and I make sure I rinse out in here really super well, and rinse out in here. So clean this really well after you've used it and let it dry, separate from this, and then put your little cap back on here. Keep it separate, store them separate, because you don't want this to rust and then not work the next time you go to use it. So there's public service announcement 1. And I think we've probably all done it. Like, anybody who has used these has like forgotten that they didn't put it away or forgotten to clean it or whatever. So if you don't remember that I told you this, you're gonna put this in there, you're gonna leave it there, and it's not gonna work the next time, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember they told me not to do that. So remember to do that. The other thing is that you really, really, really should wear a mask when you spray these. Like, don't inhale all this fume stuff. But if I put a mask on and then I try to talk to you, I'm gonna sound like Charlie Brown's mom. And I know we're all used to wearing masks today. Like, that's a whole different world, right? But the mask you need to use is the kind of mask that nobody can understand or hear you. So I am not gonna wear a mask while I spray this table and I am talking to you. But my lungs are probably not gonna be happy with me that I made that decision. So wear a mask when you spray these activator sprays. They kind of smell like vinegar. There's not a super, super strong smell, but just do yourself a favor and wear a mask, okay? So there's my 2 public service announcements for the activator spray. So I'm going to put these 2 things together so that we're ready to go on them. The other thing that's really nice is as you're purchasing the MetalSmith products, There's so many of them, and there's different activator sprays for the different paints. So there's the one we're going to use today is Rusty, the Rusty activator. There's also green, and then there's turquoise. They all look pretty much the same, so you need to make sure you look at the label, but you might look at your paint and be like, gee, which one do I use? I don't know. And there is a super helpful chart on the Miss Lillian's website within the MetalSmith paints. So if you're purchasing the MetalSmith paints, you can scroll right back up and you can look at all of the different ones.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I think she wants to talk to me. She does that like every live. She doesn't hear what I say and she wants me to talk to her. I don't like her very much. Anyways, so there's a long list of all of the different MetalSmith paints and then what spray goes with which one. And so it's so super helpful to refer back to. So even if you've bought several paints and then you forget like which spray goes best with which paint, because they do activate with a certain spray, you're going to get the best results with a certain spray. Just refer back to that chart on the page with the MetalSmith paints. It will help you so much to know which one goes with which. So we're going to use Rusty, and for the one we just did with the Santa Fe, I'm going to use Rusty with that one as well. But we're going to use Rusty with the Tarnished Jade. And just to give you an idea, here's some that we used. This is Ancient. This is Ancient. The base is Ancient, and then we sprayed it with the activator. And then you can see this like little bit up here. There's also powders that you can get. I think I brought one out here. This is the iron powder, but there's separate little powders that you can also get. We're not going to use that on the table today, but they come in a little bag like this. They're tiny, fine little powders that while it's wet, you can kind of drip these in little corners or crevices or whatever, because you know, like when something is rusty and it ages, sometimes it gets that like bubbly, crusty, extra crustiness. So if you want some extra crustiness on your piece in certain areas, you can drop those powders on while it's wet and you'll get some extra crustiness for your piece. So there's different ones of those powders too. So that's what this powder does. This powder makes it like extra crusty. So this is the rusted zinc. This is what it looks like after it ages or after it activates. And then this is Ancient. So you can kind of see the paint underneath, and then you can see just where the spray hit, and then how it kind of rusts and looks different. So again, some different tones. And then remember I told you there's like, you know, pinks and all kinds of other ones. So this is terracotta. So you can see that terracotta is more of a pink, and then we sprayed the spray on it as well. So you can kind of get an idea of what some of them look like. You're going to get some very different looks depending on the paint, depending on, you know, once you spray it, what it looks like. So you've got like tons and tons of different choices, and you can combine those paints together too if you want to like kind of mix up the looks. All right, so what we're going to do now, we've got our table here. Let's see if we can go for a little bit of a ride so you guys can see better this table and less of me. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're just going to get our paint on here. And I stippled this first coat, so I don't necessarily have to stipple the second coat if I don't want to, because I've already got the texture on it. I can stipple again if I want to, but I don't have to. So it's up to you. Like, but what you need to remember is that you have got to give up the OCD of, I might go through here and just kind of be really haphazard with it. You have to give up the OCD of, I want this paint to look an exact certain way. I want the tarnishing to be in an exact certain way, because these paints have a mind of their own. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. So I'm gonna hope that we might get some tarnishing. It takes a few hours usually to start to see the tarnishing, but I'm gonna hope that we might get a little bit before we get off this live. so. And make sure you use enough paint too. Don't skimp on the paint, because if you don't have enough, then it doesn't have anything to activate, right? If it's really thin, then you're gonna only get a little bit of the tarnishing. It's, you know, kind of dry. Okay, we're gonna do our legs here. So you'll see I'm just kind of putting it on, brushing it on, and then I'm just going back through and just kind of doing a light stipple, not like what we did with the other on that first coat where I'm doing kind of that heavy stipple. I'm just making it so it's not, so it's kind of a random, we don't just have like straight up brush strokes on it. So I promise you, these paints, they are so much fun, so much variety. They can take something that's brand new, like you can go to Hobby Lobby and you can buy a brand new pail that's super cheap, and then you can bring it home and you can put these MetalSmith paints on it and make it look like it's something that's super old and you've had it for years and it's been sitting out in the weather. Like, super easy to do. Sorry, my big head's in the way. Get that little leg there. So we're only gonna do one side at a time, and then we're gonna spray it, because I need this paint to be wet when I spray it. If I let this paint dry, then it's not gonna activate right. So if I go all the way around this table and then I come back and I try to spray it, it's gonna have already started drying, and I don't want that. I want it to be really nice and wet. So we're gonna spray it per side. All right, so here's one side done. I'm gonna shake up my spray just to make sure we got everything shook up and good. Yes, it is Tarnished Jade. Tarnished Jade is the color that we're using, and I love it. So here we go. So we're just gonna spray this, and if you spray it super heavy, you're probably gonna get a ton of it to turn. And if you spray it lighter, then it's gonna be a lighter amount that turns. So it depends on, if you want to spray it and you want that like really drippy look, then you're going to need to spray it really heavy so that like all this activator collects and starts running on it, and then you're going to have that drippy look. If you don't want that drippy look, like maybe you're painting a dresser and you want that metal look, but you don't want it dripping down your dresser, then don't spray a ton of activator on it, and it'll sit right there. You're only going to get that drippy look when you spray a ton of activator spray on it. Okay, on to the next side. So we're going to let that go, and we're going to hope that maybe we get a little bit of it turning before we get off of this live. So we're going to come over here. We're going to do the same thing. And I know that like in those little areas there, you might still see some of the undertones of what's underneath. I'm okay with that. I thought about like, what do I want underneath? And so if what's underneath peeks through, I'm okay with it. I know what it's gonna kind of look like as it turns. And you can use these paints too. I mean, a lot of us don't, but you can absolutely, if you're like, I just love that flipping color and I don't have a care in the world about making it tarnished, then don't tarnish it. Just, okay, I've got like this little tiny hair here, guys, sorry. There we go. Then don't spray the activator spray. You can just straight up use these as paints if you want to. You don't have to activate them with the activator spray to rust. You can leave them just like they are. And so if you really, really like this color, but you only want it to show that it's tarnishing like in, you know, a certain little spot, then only spray the activator spray in a little tiny spot. And it's only gonna activate and it's only gonna turn rusty where you spray that activator spray. That's it. But I said I combine colors. I like to combine colors. Sometimes it's fun to get, because some of them will have more of a blue undertone and some of them will have more of the rusty and some of them will have a green undertone after they activate. And so when you see that and you know that, sometimes I think it's fun to like combine more the iron tones that are going to have that rusty, and then maybe a bronze that's going to have, once you activate it, it's going to have more of a blue undertone. So, you kind of have to know what your look is going to be after it rusts, but sometimes combining them together is kind of fun as well. It gives you a mixture of looks because you're still going to be able to see this paint underneath. It's not going to be a complete rust job. It's not going to look like your car rusted out at the bottom or anything. You're still going to see this paint color. So mix the two, or mix 2 or 3 together, just like you're blending your paints. Blend your MetalSmith colors too. And the other thing you can do is take your MetalSmith. You can blend them in with any of the Miss Lillian's paints. So let's say you're doing this and you wanted to blend some black paint in with this at the same time. As long as it's the second coat of the MetalSmith and as long as it's wet, you can still spray that activator spray right on top and it will activate only the MetalSmith piece. So you can combine these together with any of the regular paints too, to kind of blend them together and get that blended look. So I promise you that if you just practice with them, you'll become addicted to them like the rest of us that have used them. And those little pieces that of baseboard that I showed you, like get some of those or go get a cabinet door. Like go buy some cabinet doors that are super cheap and use those as your practice pads. Like those are the best things to practice on to see how something looks. If you're afraid of, like what's it gonna look like if I use it? Use those as your practice things. All right, let's spray this one. All right, side 3. What questions do people have? Who's tried it? Who's tried it and loves it? Who's addicted to it? Or who's scared and says, okay, now I'm gonna go out and try it. Like you can totally go out and try these. They're really, 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 I promise you, they're not that scary. So it's as simple as the first coat, put on, stipple it on, paint it on, however you want to get it on, but get that first coat on where you want your piece to rust or tarnish. You want the first coat to go on, you want it to dry really well, and then you're going to come back through and you're going to do this second coat just like this. Yes, we love the MetalSmith. And I love that there's so many colors to pick from. Not just iron and copper and bronze. Like, that's what makes it so fun, and that's really what gets your creative juices flowing, and almost kind of what you're like, oh gosh, what could I use this one on? Like my cabinet's like kind of back behind me, and it's got so many different colors in it that sometimes I'm like, oh, which one do I use? But literally just pick up, I can't tell you how many times I've just picked up like a scrap piece of wood and just painted it and thought, okay, let's see what this looks like. And sometimes it's happy accidents too. Like, oh, I don't think this will look good together. And you paint it and then you're like, oh, crap, that looks awesome. I didn't expect that to happen. Like, those happy accidents are sometimes the best. I have to put some more in my bowl. I'm almost out of paint. Like I said, I put it in a bowl. I don't work out of the container. One, because my brush just doesn't fit in the container. And two, because that way, if you are working with multiple paints, you aren't contaminating the paint itself. Or if I was to happen to hit a spot where there was some of the activator, and then I were to put my paint brush back into the jar, now I've got activator in the paint jar, and it's going to activate those pieces of metal, and I certainly don't want that premature. So again, just best to take it out of the jar. Okay, here's our spray again. All right, here's our last side. Let's see if we're starting to see a little bit of it activating over here on the side. All right. Ooh, I bet that is so super pretty on earrings. I had not even thought about that. See, that's what's so awesome. There's so many super amazing ways to use this. And things that, like, I would not even think of. That's awesome. I've seen it used on tumblers too. Use them on tumblers. Super cool on that too. I can't do tumblers to save my soul, but I know somebody that can. But you can make some pretty cool looks with that as well. So many creative people out in this world. That's what keeps us all moving around. I love it. And I love how it's just so cool to me to see how you could give somebody, like I could give every single one of you on this live a jar of MetalSmith, and every single one of us would come up with a different way to use it, a different, you know, combination of using it, or, you know, different, just a completely different style. And that's what's so awesome, is that there's so many different, you know, ways out there to use these things, and everybody's heads work so different. That's what's so fun to me about the creative community. Okay. Getting close, my friends, getting close. Everybody's gonna be seeing green. Let's just hope this green is like, means money, right? Money, green grass. Isn't jade like good luck or something anyway? Wealth or good luck or something. I can't remember what jade is all about. And then I still have to do this little top up here, but I can do that after we get off this live. I won't bore you with that piece of it. Because you can't really, you can see, I guess, a little bit in there. But I took you off my table so that you were down a little more level with me. And so you won't be able to see up there very well. So when we talked about those powders and maybe making like some extra rusty or whatever, these little details are like inside these little details here. Those are perfect places for some of those powders where like extra rust would just naturally sit. Okay, let's spray our spray here. And then if you spray this and then you come back and it didn't give you the look that you wanted or whatever, you can always go back and add another layer of paint. Okay, let's see if I can turn this without jacking everything up. You can add another layer of paint and then spray the activator again. Okay, let's see here. This was our first side. I'm not seeing a ton of activating yet. It's starting to fade. I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera or not. I'm gonna pull you in a little bit. I don't know if you can see all of, it's just starting to fade out in here. And these are the areas that as it fades out, it's gonna start to tarnish. But it's really hard to see right now on the camera. But it will, I promise you, it will fade out really, really soon. So I'm gonna keep working on this. I'm gonna do the top of this really quick. And then as soon as it is done, as I'm sure you guys are tired of watching me pounce paint on a piece of furniture. So as soon as it's done, I will make sure that we get pictures posted for you to see that finished product. But again, just to recap really quick, for the MetalSmith paints, super easy to work with. You just have to give up control of what's going to happen to them. So that first coat you want to pounce on, or you can paint on if you want to, but you want at least one of the two layers to have kind of a pouncing effect, because you want to give it some depth and some, not just some straight up paint strokes. It's not a smooth finish, because if you think about rust and crustiness, it's not smooth. Yes, you can use a heat gun to speed up the process, absolutely. And I've done that in the past where I've used a heat gun. Using a heat gun gives it a different look, honestly, than letting the natural process happen. I've found, I don't know, it looks different than if you were to just let it go naturally. So, but you can actually put a heat gun to it and get a look really quick if you need to. So do that first coat, let it dry, and then come back with your second coat. And it's when you do that second coat, while it's wet, that's when you want to spray the activator spray. Just make sure that you need to make really, really sure that you have a good amount of paint for there to be activated. So stir your paint up really well, make sure you have plenty of metal chips in that paint, and then make sure when you paint it on your piece that you're not doing just a really thin coat, because you're probably not going to get a ton of activation that way. So make sure you get a really, really good coat of paint on there and then activate it. And the more you spray, the more drippy it's going to be. So it depends on what kind of drippiness that you want as to, you know, how much spray you want to spray on there. But let it sit. It'll take a few hours for it to really start turning. And then I usually let mine sit overnight, because it's just going to keep turning. And I promise you, when I come in here tomorrow morning, it's going to look completely different than how it did when I go to bed tonight. So it's going to kind of continue its little turning process. And then you want to kind of put a top coat on it to kind of finish everything off. I personally like to spray a poly spray on it before I put like an actual top coat, one of our actual satin lusters, lacklusters, or something like that. For me, it's just easier to know I've kind of sealed it off before I start putting any kind of actual like luster top coat or anything like that on there. So I spray something on it first. That's completely up to you. So, but definitely put a top coat on it. If you don't put a top coat on this, it's going to come off on your skin. It's going to come off on whatever you set on it. So you definitely want to make sure you protect it and put a top coat on. So super fun, super easy. You guys, I put a link up there to the website, or you can go and find it. Most all of the your local retailers are going to carry the MetalSmith products. So go out there. Please let us know if you have any questions. I'll continue to watch this live. If you guys think of questions or have questions, or if I missed something while I was working, I'll come back and try to answer it. But I can't wait to see what kind of creations that you all make and you post for us to see, because it is so much fun and addicting to work with. You guys stay safe, you stay warm, stay out of the snow if that's where you are. And if you're one of the lucky birds in someplace warm, please drink like a pina colada or something in my honor. So you guys have a great week, and join us on Thursday afternoon to learn all about using the luster products for doing the decoupage methods. So take care, guys. Stay warm and safe.